Arkansas funeral care. By now, most of the state is familiar with the controversial lawsuit regarding the funeral home's misconduct toward the deceased. Leroy Wood, the funeral home's manager, has yet to make any comment regarding the lawsuit. Tonight, I sat down with the first member of Leroy's family willing to make that comment.
He shows me that he's attentive, you know, like he notices people and wants to talk with people and is, I wouldn't have ever said neglectful.
So what's the disconnect then? Because we've got Uncle Leroy, and he's the guy, right? He's nice, he's funny. And then we've got alleged. Do you know what they're saying about the funeral care?
Yeah, I do, and it completely shocked everybody in our family. We never saw that coming. But from what I know, he wasn't actually handling the bodies because he was the manager of the business. And so the only thing I can guess at, and this is really kind of what our whole family has concluded, is that he's getting older and he kind of was just missing some things. Yeah. Probably shouldn't be managing a business anymore. They probably took on too much business. And he just let things get out of control when he should have been managing. But it's certainly, I cannot even imagine Uncle Leroy I know doing anything out of malintent, you know?
Yeah. He is older though, right? And so that you're saying it might not be malicious, but instead, would you use the word absent?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, and that's, like I said, just a guess of mine, but I could never, ever, ever imagine him being malicious.
Okay. But absence is I think that's a pretty healthy word for this right now, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it seems like. Yeah. And I suppose if you're doing the same thing for that long, certainly it is possible to get a little bit sloppy or just not pay attention to things as much. Add on top of that his age. And I really do think that's probably a big factor. Even if he doesn't have any sort of dementia, just being older, your memory isn't as good, your focus isn't as good.
You told me before we rolled camera that you attended your grandfather's funeral, which was Leroy's brother. Mm-hmm. Walk me through that funeral and tell me, give me some background on what it's like to attend a funeral that's been put on by Arkansas Funeral Care, so that maybe I can have a better understanding of how outside the norm this might be, or maybe, I don't know. You tell me. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know that Arkansas Funeral Care actually did the funeral. My uncle led the funeral, did all the speaking at it. And so I just remember sitting there, and a funeral is always a hard thing, but I remember being so pleased with everything that he said. He had respect for my grandfather. He said things that I think my grandfather would have wanted to be said at his funeral. He spoke truly of him, and I think offered hope to us. And so I think I just remember, even though I don't know him that well, my Uncle Leroy, I remember being proud of him and thinking yeah, this is my uncle. I'm so glad he did this. And I remember giving him a big hug afterwards, and him talking to us and just being comforting,
So you can't imagine that being the same man responsible for something like what's going on?
No, absolutely not. Unless he has just a crazy secret life. And I don't think he'd be able to mask it for nearly 80 years.
Right. It seems like there's been a lot of, and I guess it's families that have come up after the first incident in October. There have been other people that have spoken out about alleged wrongdoings, you could say. I'm looking for the right word. And so while you're saying that it might have been unlikely for him to have hidden something like that for so long. It's hard to imagine that he didn't see it at least once, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No,
like
yeah.
It's been allegedly going on for a
Right.
long time. Do you think he has seen anything like that, or do you think maybe from a managerial standpoint? What do you think do you think there's any possibility for his involvement at all?
I mean, sure, there's a possibility. I can't say that that didn't happen. I wasn't there. Based on the man I know, I just don't understand how that would have happened. But certainly that possibility can't be ruled out.
What's the rest of your family think about this? Have you talked to any of your other family members that maybe are closer to him than you are?
Yeah, so I've kind of through other family members, my mom has talked with my great aunt, who's his sister. She's kind of the one who filled us in on everything after it kind of came out. And I know that she was completely shocked, very supportive of him, obviously as a brother and sister would be, but I believe that they're very close. And so I would also think that she would have a pretty accurate view of who he is.
Okay. And so she says that there's no way it was something he had known about?
I think that's what she was saying for the most part. Once again, she wasn't there, so she can't say for sure that he didn't do it, but there's just no way that she could have ever imagined that he would do anything maliciously or know about that and not take care of it.
Yeah. See, that's the difference for me, or at least that's what I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you can't imagine malice
Right.
to be where this guy is. What I am more concerned about now is whether it was malicious or not. Did he know about it at all?
Right.
And you say that you don't think that. I mean, you say you weren't there, so there's no way you can know.
Yeah. I could see it being possible, maybe, that he's managing this business, and they're taking on too much, and maybe he does get some complaints. Maybe he does see something that's wrong. Maybe he tries to correct it. Maybe he just thinks it's going to correct itself, and then it just kind of all blows up on him. That's kind of the scenario I had imagined in my mind, anyway.
But you think there was like an activity that was, or you think he was active in trying to prevent it from happening again if he ever saw it to begin with?
I would like to think so, unless he is just really out of it, you know. And
which a man of his age, that happens sometimes.
It's possible too, yeah. The day that the hearing happened, I saw the news report afterwards and different families complaining about it, and obviously they were very upset, and I am not going to say they shouldn't be. You know, that's their family member. But I don't know what I was talking about.
We were talking about the families, and you're saying you don't want to say that they don't have a reason to be upset, because that would...
Yeah. And so there are so many different stories, and obviously I think when you have people interacting with one another, like you can have, especially with a business, you can have the business produce something and it's not what the family expects, and maybe even that the production of that wasn't necessarily a neglect or them doing anything wrong, but it wasn't what the family expected. You know, maybe a funeral is a hard time, and so if the body doesn't look the way you want it to, if something doesn't go the way you expect it to, it's going to be even more of a letdown because you're already in that point of grief.
Sure.
That being said, once again, I can't say that they didn't do a poor job, and I think these families have the right to their concerns.
The worker who was responsible for the first body called the family who wanted an open casket, and explained to them that was not possible due to the condition of the body now. Quotes are, he looks like a monster, he is totally green. And you said you don't know this man.
I don't.
What do you think about, from an objective standpoint, what do you think about that? Do you think that was misconduct for him to call, or was it just, I guess, misconduct from the beginning, or how would you have handled that situation?
Yeah, I think certainly the family had the right to know that an open casket service wouldn't be a possibility. And I don't know if that was because of a poor job embalming or if it was just the state the body was in to begin with. But just assuming that the body was just in a poor condition already to begin with, I don't think he had any right to tell them that their family member looked like a monster. That's such a trying time for people. Like, you need to be a little bit more sensitive than that. But certainly, I think he at least had the right idea of telling them, letting them know so they could plan. And if he was saying things like that, from a managerial standpoint, I think it would be a bad idea to keep that person on. But once again, it could have been a thing of, he just didn't know.
Yeah. The type of man you've explained your uncle to be, to me, has been outgoing, sweet, friendly.
Yeah.
How would he have handled that kind of situation?
I can't imagine him saying anything like that. I think knowing him, he would have let the family know, but it would have been more with the intent of just saying, I wanted to let you know that the open casket service just probably isn't going to be an option due to the state of the body. Certainly that is still your choice, but I thought you might like to know so you can plan. Something like that, considerate and kind, personable,
I don't know if you know this, but you are the first member of the Wood family to ever speak to media about any of this, whether, regardless of distance from Leroy. Why do you think that is? Like, why is Leroy staying silent if he's so detached from this situation? Yeah. I mean, obviously he has some relation, but if he's detached from the worker who did these things, why stay silent? Why not, for lack of a better term, give him up, or give her up? And then, I don't know, save a little face, maybe. Yeah. What do you think about that?
That's an excellent question. And certainly when you hear something like that, you think, oh, he must be hiding something. And my mind went there too. And once again, that's a possibility. I can't imagine that being the case. And so when I saw the news report, it said something about his lawyer had recommended that he not speak up. And so maybe it was just a case of the lawyer is trying to help him out. He tells him not to speak. He's just not going to. And I don't know that anybody has actually asked to interview anyone in my family. As far as I know, no one's turned down interviews. So it may just be a case of we're going to take care of our own, and let everything kind of settle.
Yeah, no, you were and you were talking about you don't think he would turn it down. You were very willing to come on here. Mm-hmm. You were, it was so easy to talk to you before and after the cameras were here. Yeah. If you were in his position, though, what would you do?
Oh gosh, that's hard to imagine. If I were in his position, and just going based on my assumptions that he wasn't doing anything out of malintent and he didn't know about everything that was going on, I don't know. I would like to say that I would want to speak out, at least send a message to the clients in the community that we do respect your loved ones and we're sorry for any of the heartache that this has caused to you. But then you have to add in factors like, maybe he's trying to protect the embalmer for some reason, or maybe he was involved somehow and doesn't want to speak up, or maybe he's just old and senile and shouldn't really be trusted on camera. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm sure there are some people that would argue all of those points.
Yeah.
But you said you would definitely step up and talk a little? I
would. And that being said, I do want to say to anyone who's been affected by this situation, I'm so sorry for myself and for my family that you've had to go through that. And I pray for all of you that you would have the situation righted and you would be able to come to peace with what's happened with your loved ones.
Well, that is incredible that you would say something like that. And I'm sure it means a lot to everyone who would hear it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah.